There is a lie hidden in every science textbook you have ever opened. Not a mistake, not an oversight or a byproduct of outdated data. A deliberate, practical lie built into the very diagrams we use to teach children where they live. And tonight we are going to find it. We are going to pull it out of those glossy pages, hold it up to the light of actual physics, and show you a truth so vast, so genuinely incomprehensible, that your brain will physically resist accepting it. Because the universe you think you live in, the one with the neat labels and the comfortable distances, it is a simplified reconstruction, a version of reality compressed, flattened, and sanitized to keep your sanity intact. We have been conditioned to see our cosmic address as small but manageable. The reality is something else entirely. Step outside tonight, find a place away from the city, away from the artificial glow of civilization, and look up. Pick any star, any single point of light in that cold, black sky. Now understand this, that star is our neighbor. In the grand, terrifying architecture of the galaxy, it is practically next door, the house across the street, within arm's reach by cosmic standards. And yet that star is so impossibly far away that the fastest spacecraft humanity has ever built, the absolute peak of our engineering, would take 70,000 years to reach it. If we had launched a probe toward that neighbor when the first modern humans were walking out of Africa, it still would not be halfway there. This is the first crack in our intuition. And it only gets worse from here. Now here is the part that breaks people. That star, your next door neighbor, is still inside our neighborhood. We have not even left our street yet. We have not even left the Orion Arm. We are like a parasite on a single leaf, convinced we have seen the forest because we can see the leaf next to us. And that leaf, that single, unremarkable leaf, is so large that the entire history of human civilization does not even qualify as a heartbeat in the time it takes light to cross it. Here is the paradox that sits at the heart of everything we are about to explore. The Orion Arm is called a minor spur because it is quieter than the great arms of the galaxy, smaller, less dense, less dramatic. And that quietness, that apparent insignificance, is the only reason you are alive right now to hear these words. If we lived closer to the galactic center, the radiation from the sheer density of neighboring stars and the constant drumbeat of supernovae would have sterilized the Earth before the first single-celled organism could divide. If we lived on the extreme outer edges, there would not be enough heavy elements, the iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen filling your lungs in this moment, to build a rocky planet at all. We live in the Orion Arm because it is a sanctuary. A cathedral of light, positioned with such precise perfection in the quiet suburbs of the galaxy that life had exactly enough time, 4 billion years, to crawl from a molecule in a tide pool to a creature that can look up and ask where it lives. Our insignificance on the map is the only reason we have a map at all. Feel that for a moment. Every breath you are taking right now is a consequence of the Orion Arm's specific, sparse, and fragile physics. Now open any astronomy textbook. Find the diagram of the Milky Way, that beautiful silver pinwheel spinning in the dark. Your eyes do what every human eye does. They follow the grand, sweeping arcs that define the galaxy. You see the Perseus Arm, a river of starlight so massive it would take 30,000 years to cross. You see the Scutum Centaurus Arm, a structure so dense it forms the very backbone of our galactic home. And then tucked in the shadows between these titans, there is a tiny, unremarkable sliver, a minor spur, a footnote, a smudge of ink between the real structures of the cosmos. That sliver is the Orion Arm, that sliver is us, and the diagram is lying to you about what it contains. But the diagram isn't the worst part. The worst part is what we named it. 3 centimeters. That is how much space your textbook gives to the Orion Arm on the page. 3 centimeters that your eye crosses in a fraction of a second. But those 3 centimeters contain 10,000 years of light. Every single millimeter of that printed ink represents 1,000 years of darkness, hundreds of stars, dozens of black holes, thousands of worlds we will never name and never visit. To fit 100,000 light years onto a piece of paper, the map maker commits an act of total informational destruction. Every distance that would take 1,000,000 human lifetimes to traverse is collapsed into the width of a pen stroke. Consider this: if an alien civilization at the far end of the Orion Arm sent us a message on the day the dinosaurs went extinct, 65 million years ago, that message is still traveling through space. It has not arrived yet. It is still moving through the minor Spur that the textbooks treat as an afterthought. That is our neighborhood. That is the truth the 3 centimeters are hiding. But here is what the textbook never told you. The lie is not just about size. It is about time, and time is where this story stops being science and becomes something closer to a nightmare. Because when we finally measured the Orion Arm with precision, when we sent up the Gaia satellite and mapped over 1 billion stars with surgical mathematical accuracy, we did not find a minor Spur. We found a structure behaving in ways that defy our current models of how galaxies evolve, shaped by forces we do not yet have names for. And the more precisely we measured, the more certain we became that something about this place, our home, is very, very wrong. We are realizing that our sense of cosmic insignificance was a shield, a way to avoid looking directly at the scale and strangeness of the structures we actually inhabit. Tonight, we answer only 2 questions. First, how big is the Orion Arm really? Not the 3 centimeter version, but the actual uncompressed, unfiltered truth that the diagrams have been erasing for decades. We are going to place the numbers into a context that will make your skin crawl. Second, if the Orion Arm contains over 10 billion planets, worlds with the same chemistry and the same potential as Earth, why is it so completely and devastatingly silent? Where is anyone else in this 10,000-year-wide home? Those are the only 2 questions that matter tonight, and by the time we reach the end of this hour, you will have the answers, and you will wish you did not. We begin where every map begins, with the shape of the thing we are trying to understand. But I have to warn you, the shape is not what you think it is. The arms of the Milky Way are not solid. They are not rivers of stars frozen in space like the blades of a slowly spinning fan. They are something far stranger. They are ripples in the fabric of gravity itself, phantom structures that move through the galaxy like a wave moves through water while the water stays behind. The stars are not locked inside the arms. They drift in and out like traffic through a slower zone, briefly compressed, then released. The arm we call home is not a fixed thing. It is a temporary pattern, a ghost of a structure, here for a cosmic moment and then gone. And once you understand that, once you see the Orion Arm for the fleeting, gravity-written thing it actually is, the silence of the universe starts to feel very different. Lights down, headphones in. You are about to see where you actually live, not the diagram, not the 3 centimeter smudge between the real arms, the real thing. And it is so much stranger, so much larger, and so much more fragile than you were ever told. Welcome to the true scale of the Orion Arm. It is time to break the illusion. To understand why the scale of our neighborhood is so terrifying, we must first confront the impossible task of mapping a place you are currently trapped in. The illusion of the map breaks the moment you realize we are trying to sketch a cathedral from the perspective of a dust mite on the floorboards. Imagine being a microscopic organism, living on a single strand of fiber inside a massive, ornate carpet that covers the floor of a palace. You can feel the texture of the threads immediately around you. You can see the colors of the fibers within your limited field of vision, but you have no way to step off the floor, look down from the ceiling, and see the intricate, sweeping pattern that those threads create. This is the predicament of the internal observer, and it is the fundamental struggle of every astronomer who has ever tried to chart the Milky Way. We know more about the shape of the Andromeda galaxy, 2.5 million light-years away, than we do about our own home. Why? Because we can see Andromeda. We can observe its grand spiral arms, its glowing core, and its perfect, shimmering disk from a position of safe distance. But we are embedded in the very disk of the Milky Way, blinded by the very starlight and dust we are trying to measure. When you look up at that pale, milky band of light in the night sky, you aren't seeing the galaxy, you're seeing the edge of the room. You are seeing the smog of our own neighborhood, vast suffocating clouds of interstellar dust and gas that block our vision of everything else. Mapping our galaxy is not an act of photography, it is an act of forensic reconstruction. It is a war against perspective. Through centuries of painstaking science, we have pieced together a skeletal map of the architecture we inhabit. We've discovered that we live in what is known as a barred spiral galaxy. It is a structure of extreme violence and extreme elegance. At the absolute heart of our home sits the galactic bulge, a dense, spherical knot of ancient stars packed so tightly together that the sky there would never know the meaning of darkness. If you were on a planet near that center, your night sky would be a blinding, eternal dawn. Thousands of stars would be closer to you than our nearest neighbor. The sky would not be a black void, but a chaotic, blazing tapestry of white, gold, and blue. Running through this central bulge is the bar, a massive, beam-like structure of old, red stars stretching nearly 27,000 light-years across the heart of the galaxy. This bar serves as the gravitational anchor for the entire spiral, funneling gas and dust toward the center like a slow-motion drain. This is the backbone of the Milky Way, the engine that drives the rotation of every star you have ever seen, and we are nowhere near it. We live 26,000 light-years away from that central fire. We are out in the suburbs, in the dark, sparse regions where the air is clear enough for life to evolve without being sterilized by the death of a neighboring star every few millennia. On every diagram you see, this position is marked by a tiny, humble dot on a feature called the Orion Arm. But even that name is a subject of intense scientific debate. For decades, the Orion Arm was dismissed. It was described as a spur, a minor splinter of stars, a small temporary bridge connecting the two massive, true arms of the galaxy, the Sagittarius Arm on the inside and the Perseus Arm on the outside. In the traditional maps, the Orion Arm is drawn as an afterthought, a thin line of ink barely worth labeling. It creates the impression that we are living in a cosmic gap, a small, unimportant piece of debris floating between the real structures of the galaxy. This is the insignificance illusion. Because we see the Orion Arm drawn as a tiny sliver compared to the grand, sweeping arcs of the Perseus Arm, our brains conclude that the Orion Arm must be small. But for most of human history, our map was a blurry guess. We used radio waves to track hydrogen gas, trying to hear the shape of the galaxy because we couldn't see it. We found traffic jams of gas, density waves where the gravity is just a bit stronger, compressing clouds into new suns. These traffic jams are what we call the spiral arms. In recent years, we sent a new scout into the void, the Gaia satellite. Gaia is a machine of terrifying precision, designed to measure the positions and movements of over 1 billion stars with surgical accuracy. And as the data from Gaia began to flow back to Earth, our map of the minor Spur began to change. We started to realize that the Orion Arm isn't just a splinter. It is a massive, complex, and coherent structure in its own right. New data suggests it might even be twice as long as we previously thought, stretching for over 20,000 light-years. We are finding that the small bridge we call home is actually a colossal wall of suns that defies every minor label we ever gave it. The comfort of being minor was the last shield we had left. It allowed us to feel like we occupied a manageable corner of the universe. But that shield has shattered. We have been lied to by the map, not out of malice, but because of the sheer impossibility of the numbers. We look at the Orion Arm on a screen and see 3 centimeters of light, but those 3 centimeters represent a physical structure that contains billions of stars. It spans a distance so vast that the fastest thing in the universe, light itself, needs 10 millennia to cross it. We have categorized it as a spur only because it sits next to monsters. It is like calling the Amazon River a stream because it sits on the same planet as the Pacific Ocean. The label minor is a relative term, but in absolute terms, the Orion Arm is an uncontained nightmare of volume. Think about our local environment, the local bubble. This is a hollowed-out cavity in the interstellar medium that our sun is currently sailing through. This bubble, nearly 1,000 light-years wide, was carved out by the violent deaths of ancient stars 14 million years ago. We are literally living in the wake of a galactic demolition project. This bubble is a neighborhood within a neighborhood, a cleared-out room inside the Orion Arm. And yet, even this room is so large that we have only explored an infinitesimal fraction of it. We are a species that has barely managed to step off its own porch, trying to understand the architecture of a city that spans the horizon and defies our biological intuition. The mystery of the map is that it creates a false sense of familiarity. We see the labels, Perseus Arm, Sagittarius Arm, Orion Spur, and we feel like we understand our place. But these labels are just human attempts to name the infinite. They are ghostly streets made of gravity and light. The arms aren't solid, they are ripples. Our own sun is a traveler, drifting through the Orion Arm at 230 kilometers per second. We haven't always been here, and we won't stay here forever. We are currently residents of a structure that is itself a moving target. This leads us to a profound philosophical realization. The map isn't just showing us where we are, it's showing us how much we don't know. The more precisely we measure the Orion Arm, the more we realize that our neighborhood is not the quiet, stable suburb we thought it was. It is a dynamic, shifting, and massive architecture of light that we are only just beginning to see clearly. The smallness was a comfort. The minor label was a way to make the galaxy feel like something we could master. But as we pull the lie out of the textbook, we find that we are living in the middle of a colossal structure that dwarfs our entire history. We have looked at the map and we have seen the city. We have identified the bulge, the bar, and the ghostly streets of the spiral arms. But now we must leave the geometry behind and look at the distance between the streets. We must move from the where to the how big. Because if the Orion Arm is just a minor splinter in a barred spiral galaxy, then the true measurements of that splinter are about to break your understanding of time, space, and existence. We have talked about the architecture. Now, we must face the sheer, crushing scale of the 10,000-year journey. Picture a single, silent beam of starlight launched when the first humans learned to farm, still screaming through the absolute darkness of our own backyard, with thousands of years of travel left before it even reaches the edge of our street. If you were to reach out with a cosmic hand and try to grab the Orion Arm, your fingers would pass right through it. You would find no solid structure to hold, no rigid spine of matter, no permanent river of stars. This is the third wall of our informed despair, the realization that our home is not a place but a ghost. When we look at the beautiful, sweeping arms of a spiral galaxy, our intuition tells us we are looking at a physical object, a giant, rotating fan blade made of suns. We assume that the stars we see inside the Orion Arm were born there, live there, and will die there. But the physics of the universe tells a much stranger, much more unsettling story. To understand the architecture of the void, you have to understand the wind-up dilemma. If the spiral arms of the Milky Way were solid structures, if they were made of stars permanently locked together in a rotating line, the galaxy would have ceased to exist billions of years ago. Physics dictates that stars closer to the center of the galaxy orbit much faster than stars on the outer edges. If the arms were solid, they would have wound themselves tighter and tighter with every rotation, like a ball of yarn, until the entire structure collapsed into a featureless disk of light. But the Milky Way has maintained its elegant spiral for over 10 billion years. How? The answer is as beautiful as it is terrifying. The arms are not things, they are waves. Imagine a highway stretching across a continent. At certain points along that highway, there are massive, slow-moving traffic jams. If you were looking down from a satellite, you would see these jams as distinct, dark clumps on the road. You might even give them names: the Orion Jam, the Perseus Congestion. From your perspective high above, the jam looks like a solid, permanent feature of the map. But if you were to zoom in, you would see that no individual car stays in the jam for long. New cars scream into the congestion from behind. They are forced to slow down and compress together for a few miles, and then they accelerate out the other side, leaving the jam behind. The jam itself remains in the same spot, a ghostly pattern maintained by a constant flow of temporary visitors. This is exactly what the Orion Arm is. It is a density wave, a ripple in the gravitational fabric of the galaxy. We are currently living inside a cosmic traffic jam that is 10,000 light-years long. The stars of our neighborhood are not part of the arm in any permanent sense. They are merely the travelers who happen to be passing through the slow zone right now. Our own sun entered the Orion Arm millions of years ago, and in the deep future, it will emerge out the other side, drifting into the empty, dark interarm regions where the stars are few and the nights are truly black. We are temporary residents of a gravitational ghost. This realization breaks the human sense of home. We have spent our entire history building a culture and a science around the stability of our neighborhood, only to find that the neighborhood is a transient compression of gas and light. But the physics goes even deeper. When gas and dust clouds from the sparse interarm regions drift into the density wave of the Orion Arm, they don't just slow down, they are crushed. The gravity of the arm acts like a giant, invisible vice, squeezing these clouds until they reach a critical point of collapse. This is the architecture of light. The spiral arms are bright not because that's where all the stars are, but because the arms are the only places where stars are being born. The Orion Arm is a line of neon signs in the dark. As the gas clouds are compressed, they ignite into star nurseries, massive, glowing nebulae like the Orion Nebula. These regions are the forges of the cosmos, churning out thousands of brilliant, hot blue stars. These stars are the supergiants of the arm. They burn with a ferocity that is millions of times more intense than our sun. Because they burn so hot, they die young, lasting only a few million years before exploding as supernovae. They are born inside the arm. They light up the arm with their electric blue fire, and they die before they ever have the chance to leave. This is why the arms look so defined on a map. They are illuminated by the short-lived ghosts of the stars they created. Our Sun, by contrast, is a slow burner. It is a yellow dwarf, a stable, long-lived traveler that has survived for 4.5 billion years. We are old enough to have passed through multiple spiral arms during our long journey around the galactic center. We are currently witnessing the blue fire of the Orion Arm from the inside, but we are not of it. We are the red-blooded veterans of the galaxy, sailing through a construction site of blue-white giants. This creates a profound contrast in our neighborhood. We are surrounded by the most violent starbirth regions in the galaxy, yet we sit in a pocket of eerie stability. But this brings us back to the terrifying scale promised in our title. If the Orion Arm is a wave and we are just passing through it, we have to ask, what's the wave doing to us? The density of the arm is not just a visual feature. It is a physical pressure. As we move through the Orion Arm, we encounter interstellar shrapnel, the debris of those blue-white giants that lived and died in a heartbeat. We are sailing through a graveyard of ancient explosions. Some scientists believe that our passage through the denser parts of the Orion Arm in the past may have triggered mass extinctions on Earth, as our solar system was bombarded by increased radiation or pulled into the path of lethal gas clouds. The spur we call home isn't just a map feature. It is a dynamic, shifting environment that has the power to edit the history of life on any planet it touches. And then there is the scale of the gap between the Orion Arm and its neighbors, the Perseus and Sagittarius arms. There are vast regions of space that are effectively empty. These are the interarm voids. If you were to stand on a planet in the middle of one of these voids, the night sky would be unrecognizable. You would see the distant, glowing rivers of the spiral arms on either side of you, but the space immediately around you would be a black abyss. No neighbors, no nearby star nurseries, just the silence of the deep galaxy. We are currently plugged into the starlight of the Orion Arm, but we are moving toward the exit. We are residents of a temporary bridge, and beneath us is a drop that spans thousands of light years of nothingness. This is the informed despair of the spiral physics. It tells us that our address is an illusion. We are not from the Orion Arm, we are just in it. The structure itself is a phantom, a gravitational ripple that would exist even if every star within it were blotted out. The arm is a pattern of information, a wave of energy that moves through the matter of the galaxy like a shiver moves through skin. Once you understand this, the silence of the Orion Arm, the second question we promise to answer, starts to take on a more sinister tone. If the Orion Arm is a star factory, a place of intense creation and violent death, why don't we hear the echoes of other civilizations who must have been born in the same fire? If there are 10 billion planets in this arm, and if the arm is constantly churning out the ingredients for life, why is the cosmic radio so still? We are living in the most active, star-rich spur of the neighborhood, yet we are surrounded by a silence so absolute it suggests that the architecture of light might actually be a trap. We have looked at the map, we have seen the city, and now we understand the ghostly physics of the streets. But to understand the true terror of the scale, we must move from the wave to the bubble. We must look at the specific cleared-out room our sun is currently sitting in, a room carved by violence and maintained by the deaths of our neighbors. We have survived the physics of the spiral. Now we must face the local bubble and the realization that we are living in the wake of a galactic massacre. The Orion Arm isn't just a wave of light. It is a graveyard of stars, and our sun is currently hiding in one of its most haunted corners. You are currently living inside a crime scene. As you sit here, reading these words or watching this screen, you are drifting through the hollowed-out wreckage of a galactic catastrophe. For decades, astronomers were puzzled by a strange inconsistency in our neighborhood. When they looked out into the deeper Orion Arm, they saw a galaxy filled with thick, churning clouds of cold hydrogen gas and suffocating lanes of interstellar dust. But when they looked at the space immediately surrounding our Sun, the region stretching for hundreds of light years in every direction, they found something impossible. They found a void, a place where the smog of the galaxy had been scrubbed clean, leaving behind a pocket of thin, hot, and eerily transparent gas. This is the fourth wall of our informed despair, the local bubble. To understand the terrifying scale of our home, you must first understand the violence required to create it. Imagine walking into a dense, ancient forest where the trees are so thick you can barely see the sky. But suddenly you stumble into a massive clearing, a circle a mile wide where every tree has been leveled, every bush has been incinerated, and the ground is nothing but scorched earth. You would immediately ask, what could have done this? This is the exact question astronomers asked when they mapped the local bubble. The trees of our forest are the giant molecular clouds of the Orion Arm, and about 14 million years ago, something leveled them. The culprits were ghosts. Specifically, the ghosts of a dozen massive stars that reached the end of their lives in a synchronized burst of violence. These were the blue giants we talked about in the previous section, stars far larger and more temperamental than our Sun. Between 10 and 14 million years ago, a cluster of these giants exploded as supernovae, one after another, like a slow-motion nuclear barrage. These weren't distant flickers in the sky, they were local events. Each explosion sent a gargantuan shockwave screaming through the Orion Arm at thousands of kilometers per second. These waves acted like cosmic snowplows, pushing the gas and dust of the neighborhood outward, compressing it into a dense, glowing shell, and leaving a 1,000 light-year-wide cavity in their wake. We are living in the blast radius. Our entire solar system is currently sailing through a graveyard that was excavated by the deaths of our neighbors. But here is where the Safehouse paradox begins. While the creation of the local bubble was an act of supreme violence, its existence is the only reason we can see the stars at all. If we were not inside this bubble, if our Sun were currently embedded in the normal density of the Orion Arm, the night sky would be a murky, brownish haze. The dust would be so thick that the distant galaxies and the grand spiral arms would be invisible to our telescopes. The local bubble is our cosmic window. It has cleared the air, giving us a front-row seat to the universe. But there is a darker side to this sanctuary. In the niche of cosmic consciousness, we have to ask, is it a coincidence that we are here? Some scientists argue that the local bubble acts as a shield. By clearing out the dense gas, the supernovae of the past may have reduced the number of lethal interstellar clouds that could have drifted through our solar system and stripped away the Earth's atmosphere. We are the beneficiaries of a galactic clearing. We are living in a safe house built from the corpses of dead suns, but a safe house is still a cage. Think about the scale of this room we call the local bubble. It is roughly 1,000 light-years across. In the diagrams we've been deconstructing, 1,000 light-years is a microscopic dot, a speck of dust on the Orion Arm. But let's put that speck into a context that your brain can actually process. 1,000 light-years. Light travels at 300,000 kilometers every single second. It can circle the entire Earth 7 times in a single heartbeat. And yet, if you were to stand at one wall of the local bubble and shine a flashlight toward the other side, that beam of light would have to travel for 1,000 years before it reached the edge. Think about what happens on Earth in 1,000 years. 1,000 years ago, The Vikings were crossing the Atlantic. The Crusades hadn't yet begun. Every person you have ever heard of in a history book lived and died within the time it takes for a single pulse of light to cross our small local room. We are not talking about the galaxy. We are not even talking about the Orion Arm yet. We are talking about the void inside the arm. We are talking about the clearing in the forest. And that clearing is so massive that the entire history of the medieval and modern world is just a fraction of its diameter. This is the informed despair of scale. Even our empty spaces are too big for us to own. In 2022, the Gaia satellite provided the final chilling proof of the bubble's power. Using the most precise starlight measurements in history, a team of researchers found that almost every single star nursery, every region where new suns are being born in our neighborhood, sits directly on the surface of the local bubble. The shock waves that cleared our room didn't just push the gas away, they piled it up at the edges. Like a wave hitting a beach, the gas became dense enough to collapse, triggering a ring of fire around our solar system. We are literally surrounded by a wall of newborn stars, all birthed by the same explosions that cleared our path. We are in the eye of a storm of creation. But this brings us to the temporal wall. If the local bubble is 1,000 light-years wide and we are at its center, it means that any message we send to a neighbor at the edge of our room would take 500 years to arrive, and their reply would take another 500. A simple "is anyone there" becomes a 1,000-year project. We are isolated not by the big galaxy, but by the very room we live in. We are shouting into a clearing that is so vast the echo takes a millennium to return. And once you leave the bubble, you don't find freedom. You find the wall. The edges of the local bubble are made of dense, cold gas, the interstellar medium that was pushed aside. Beyond that wall, the Orion Arm becomes a labyrinth of gravity and radiation. We are like children who have spent their lives in a sunlit nursery, unaware that the walls of the nursery are made of the debris of a 1,000-year-old war, and that outside the door, the real monsters are waiting. We have categorized the Orion Arm as a minor spur because we compare it to the major arms. We have categorized the local bubble as a small void because we compare it to the arm. But this hierarchy of smallness is a psychological trap. It makes us feel like we are part of a manageable neighborhood. But when you realize that the small room takes 1,000 years for light to cross, the hierarchy collapses. The true scale isn't about how big the galaxy is. It's about how small we are compared to the emptiest part of our own backyard. As we move from the bubble to the neighbors of the sun, we have to confront the ultimate contrast. We are in a safe house, yes. We are in a sanctuary carved by ghosts, but the ghosts are still there. The stars that didn't explode, our nearest neighbors, are sitting just outside our doorstep. And as we are about to see, even these nearby stars are monsters in their own right. We are living in a neighborhood of giants, and we are the only ones who seem to be standing still. The local bubble is a clearing in the woods, but the woods are filled with things that make our sun look like a candle in a hurricane. We have looked at the empty space. Now we must look at the inhabitants. We must face the monsters of the Orion Arm, the stars that define our night sky, and the terrifying physics they represent. Welcome to the neighborhood of giants. This is where we find out who our neighbors really are. You have spent your entire life in a nursery. The local bubble, that 1,000 light-year clearing we just explored, is a sanctuary, a quiet, low-density pocket of space where our sun has drifted for the last few million years. But a clearing in the forest is only peaceful until you look at what is lurking in the trees. As we move our gaze beyond the sunlit porch of our solar system and into the deeper architecture of the Orion Arm, we encounter the fifth wall of our informed despair, the realization that our neighborhood is populated by monsters. We like to think of our sun as a massive, powerful entity, the ruler of 8 planets and the source of all life. But in the context of the Orion Arm, our sun is not a king. It is a flickering candle sitting in a room full of nuclear furnaces. To grasp the terrifying scale of our home, you have first to understand the naked eye illusion. When you step outside on a clear night and look up at the thousands of stars that dapple the sky, you might assume you are looking at the Milky Way. You might feel as though you are peering into the deep, infinite heart of the galaxy, but the truth is far more intimate and far more chilling. Virtually every single star you can see with your naked eye, every point of light that has ever inspired a poet or guided a navigator, is a resident of the Orion Arm. You aren't looking at the galaxy, you are looking at your own street. You are looking at the streetlights of a single, minor spur. The furthest star you can see without a telescope is likely only a few thousand light years away. Beyond the borders of our minor neighborhood, the galaxy fades into a blurry, undifferentiated glow. We are surrounded by billions of stars, yet we are only aware of the few giants who happen to be shouting loud enough for our eyes to hear. And those giants are terrifying. Let us look at the first monster in our backyard, Betelgeuse. You can see it tonight in the constellation of Orion, a steady reddish-orange spark marking the shoulder of the hunter. It is one of our closest neighbors in the Arm, sitting roughly 550 to 700 light-years away. In the diagrams we've been deconstructing, 700 light-years is a distance so small it can't even be drawn. But let's put Betelgeuse into the context of your own life. If our sun were the size of a single marble, Betelgeuse would be a sphere the size of a city stadium. If you were to take our sun out of the center of the solar system and replace it with this neighbor of ours, the results would be an immediate planetary erasure. Betelgeuse is so enormous that its outer atmosphere would not just swallow the Earth. It would extend past the orbit of Mars, past the asteroid belt, and would likely reach or even exceed the orbit of Jupiter. Our entire inner solar system, every planet we have ever dreamed of colonizing, would exist inside the body of this single star. This is a resident of the Orion Arm. This is what lives just down the street from us, and Betelgeuse is not a stable neighbor. It is a red supergiant nearing the end of its life, pulsating and heaving like a wounded beast. When it finally dies, which could happen tomorrow or 100,000 years from now, it will explode in a supernova so bright it will cast shadows on Earth at midnight and be visible during the day for weeks. We are living in a neighborhood with a ticking time bomb, and we are close enough to see the fuse burning. But Betelgeuse is not alone. Look further into the Arm toward the blue fire we discussed in the physics of the spiral. Here we find Rigel, the brilliant blue-white star that marks Orion's foot. Rigel is a powerhouse of radiation, shining with the light of over 100,000 suns. If Betelgeuse is a stadium, Rigel is a concentrated blue blowtorch. It is 60,000 times more luminous than our sun. While our star provides a gentle, life-sustaining warmth, Rigel is a source of high-energy violence that sterilizes everything in its immediate path. These are the blue giants that light up the Orion Arm. They are the neon signs of our neighborhood, born in the star nurseries of the density wave and destined to die in spectacular bursts of fire. This brings us to the Orion Nebula, the most famous landmark in our Arm. To the naked eye, it looks like a faint, fuzzy patch of light in the middle of Orion's sword. Through a telescope, it is a masterpiece of cosmic horror and beauty. It is a vast, glowing cloud of hydrogen gas and toxic dust, 1,300 light-years away and 24 light-years wide. But it isn't just a cloud, it is a forge. Inside the Orion Nebula, the gravity of the Arm is currently crushing gas into thousands of new suns. We are witnessing the birth of an entire star system from our front row seat in the local bubble. We see proplids, swirling disks of dust and gas that will eventually become planets. We are looking at the raw materials of future Earths being assembled in the darkness. But feel the scale again. The Orion Nebula is 24 light-years across. Our entire solar system, out to the furthest reaches of the Oort cloud, is less than 2 light-years wide. You could fit 12 of our solar systems end-to-end inside that one glowing cloud. And that cloud is just one of thousands of such nurseries scattered throughout our minor Spur. The Orion Arm is not a sparse desert. It is a crowded, violent, and hyperactive laboratory of matter and energy. We are the quiet exception. We are the yellow candle sitting in a pocket of calm, surrounded by the debris of ancient explosions and the birth cries of new giants. This is the informed despair of the neighbors. The more we measure them, the more we realize how fragile our own existence is. We are like a family living in a wooden cottage in the middle of an industrial smelting district. We see the sparks flying, we feel the heat of the furnaces, and we realize that our survival is a matter of sheer mathematical luck. We have been placed in a sweet spot of the arm where the giants are far enough away to be beautiful, but not close enough to incinerate us. But this realization leads us to a profound contrast. If the Orion Arm is so packed with giants, so rich with the ingredients for planets, and so active with the chemistry of life, then why is our immediate neighborhood so empty? Why, among the billions of stars in this arm, do we only hear the sound of our own breathing? This is the crowded room paradox. We are discovering that the Orion Arm is a colossal structure containing at least 10 billion planets. 10 billion worlds, many of them rocky, many of them in the habitable zones of their stars, all sharing the same 10,000-year-long street with us. In the niche of cosmic consciousness, we have to ask, is it possible that the scale of these giants is what keeps us apart? Is the distance between Rigel and the Sun, a distance that light takes 800 years to cross, the ultimate social distancing? We are finding that the true scale of our neighborhood isn't just a physical measurement, it is a psychological barrier. We see the lights of our neighbors' houses, but the forest between us is so vast and so filled with monsters that we can never visit. We are neighbors in sight, but strangers in existence. As we move from the giants of the arm to the galactic habitable zone, we have to confront the ultimate why. Why are we here in this specific spur at this specific time? Is our insignificance on the map actually our greatest asset? We have looked at the monsters, now we must look at the shield. We must understand how the Orion Arm acts as a sanctuary in a galaxy that is trying to kill us. We have survived the neighborhood of giants. Now we must face the sanctuary in the spiral, and the realization that our smallness is the only reason we have a story to tell. The Orion Arm is a graveyard of giants and a nursery of gods, and somewhere in the middle, a tiny yellow star holds a planet that has finally learned to measure the distance. But as we are about to see, the distance is not just space. It is a filter. Welcome to the sanctuary of the spiral. This is where we find out why we were allowed to survive. Your existence is a statistical anomaly that the laws of physics should, by all accounts, despise. We have spent centuries obsessing over the Goldilocks zone of our solar system, the narrow, temperate band where liquid water can flow and life can breathe. We celebrate the perfect distance between the Earth and the Sun, marveling at the cosmic luck that placed us in this fragile oasis. But as we zoom out to the true scale of the Orion Arm, we encounter the sixth wall of our informed despair. The realization that being on a lucky planet is useless if you are in the wrong neighborhood. To understand why the Orion Arm matters, you have to understand that it is more than just a coordinate on a map. It is a fallout shelter. It is a galactic habitable zone, a precise, narrow sanctuary in a galaxy that is otherwise a churning furnace of radiation and a barren desert of information. To grasp the miracle of our location, you must first look toward the monster we identified in the architecture of the void, the galactic center. On those textbook diagrams, the center is a beautiful, glowing heart. In reality, it is a cosmic abattoir. As you move inward from the Orion Arm toward the galactic bulge, the density of stars increases exponentially. In the core, stars are packed so tightly that they are constantly jostling one another with their gravitational wake. Supernovae, the violent, agonizing deaths of massive suns, occur with a frequency that would be a death sentence for life. If Earth were located just 10,000 light-years closer to that central fire, our sky would be a constant barrage of gamma-ray bursts and lethal X-rays. Our atmosphere would be stripped away every few million years, and the delicate chemical bonds of our DNA would be shattered before they could ever learn to replicate. The heart of the Milky Way is a place of extreme light, but it is also a place of total biological erasure. Now look in the opposite direction. Look toward the outer arm and the sparse, lonely fringes of the galactic disk. Here the danger is not violence but starvation. In the outer reaches of the galaxy there is a profound lack of metallicity. In the language of astronomy, metals are any elements heavier than hydrogen or helium, the carbon in your cells, the iron in your blood, the silicon in the soil beneath your feet. These elements are only forged in the hearts of stars and scattered by supernovae. Because the outer galaxy has fewer stars and fewer explosions, it is a region of elemental poverty. There simply isn't enough stuff there to build a rocky planet like Earth. You might find giant, cold spheres of gas, but you will never find a world with a solid crust or a magnetic core. The outer galaxy is a desert of matter, where the ingredients for consciousness simply do not exist. This brings us to the profound irony of the Orion Arm. We have been taught to see it as a minor spur, a secondary feature, a galactic footnote. But in the niche of the philosophy of physics, we realize that our insignificance is the very thing that allowed us to happen. We live 26,000 light-years from the center because that is the distance of survival. We are in a sweet spot of the spiral where there are enough stars to forge the elements of life, but not so many stars that they incinerate that life in its cradle. We are on a minor spur because the major arms, the Perseus and the Scutum Centaurus, are too active, too crowded, and too dangerous. They are the cosmic high-traffic zones, where density waves trigger starbirth at a rate that is too chaotic for the slow, 4-billion-year crawl of evolution. We live in the Orion Arm because it is the quiet suburb of the Milky Way. It is a pocket of stability that has lasted just long enough for a single yellow star to maintain a steady temperature for 5 billion years. If the Milky Way were a city, the galactic center would be the high-energy, high-radiation industrial district where no one can sleep. The outer edges would be the desolate, airless wilderness. The Orion Arm is the only place where the conditions for a home were actually met. Our smallness on the map is not a sign of our unimportance, it is our cosmic shield. Our insignificance is our sanctuary. But here is the informed despair that breaks the intuition. A sanctuary is only a sanctuary as long as it lasts. The Orion Arm is a density wave, a ghostly ripple that we are currently passing through. We have enjoyed 4 billion years of relative calm because the wave we inhabit is minor. It is sparse, it is thin, but the wave is moving and we are moving through it. There is evidence in the geological record of Earth. The mass extinctions we've all heard of, that might correspond to the moments our solar system drifted into slightly denser pockets of the arm, encountering lethal gas clouds or the radiation of a nearby neighbor. We are not safe in any permanent sense. We are just currently in a period of low galactic weather. And then there is the scale of the silence within the sanctuary. This is the second question we promised to answer, and it becomes much more haunting when you realize how perfect our neighborhood is. If the Orion Arm is the sweet spot of the entire galaxy, if it is the only place where the radiation is low and the chemistry is rich, then it should be the most crowded place in the universe. Our arm contains over 10 billion planets. Hundreds of millions of these worlds are rocky, Earth-sized, and sitting in their own Goldilocks zones. According to every model of astrobiology, the Orion Arm should be a vibrant, noisy, interconnected network of civilizations. It should be a galactic metropolis. But when we point our most sensitive radio telescopes at our neighbors, at Alpha Centauri, at Sirius, at the stars of the Orion Nebula, we hear nothing. We find a silence so absolute that it defies the mathematical probability of our own existence. If the sanctuary in the spiral is so perfect for us, why hasn't it worked for anyone else? Or worse, did it work for them, and are we now standing in a neighborhood of ghosts? We are beginning to realize that the true scale of our home is not just about the distance between stars, it's about the distance between moments of life. In the niche of cosmic consciousness, we explore the Great Filter theory, the idea that something about the transition from a planet to a galactic civilization is almost impossible to survive. As we look at the scale of the Orion Arm, we have to ask, is the Spur a cradle or is it a cage? Does the scale itself act as the filter? If light takes 10,000 years to cross our minor neighborhood, then a civilization could rise, dominate their star system, and go extinct all before their first hello reaches the house across the street. The true scale might be the reason for the silence. We are isolated not by the big galaxy, but by the sheer, uncompressed time it takes for anything to happen in our own backyard. The why it keeps getting worse factor is the realization that the more we understand our perfect position, the more alone we feel. We are like a person who has won a 1 in a billion lottery, only to realize that the prize is a mansion in the middle of an infinite, silent void. We have the metallicity, we have the stability, we have the Safehouse. We have everything required for a cosmic future. But as we look out into the 10,000-year wide street of the Orion Arm, we see no lights in the windows of our neighbors. We see no footprints in the red dust of their worlds. This is the informed despair of the sanctuary. It tells us that we are the beneficiaries of a cosmic fluke, a temporary alignment of gravity and chemistry that has allowed us to exist for a brief moment in galactic time. We are the observer in a cathedral of light that seems to have no other audience. As we move from the sanctuary to the neighborhood of ghosts, we have to face the ultimate audit of the Orion Arm. We have looked at the map, the physics, the bubble, the monsters, and the shield. Now we must look at the residents who aren't there. We must confront the Fermi paradox in our own street. We must ask, if the Orion Arm is the perfect home, why is the house so quiet? We have survived the sanctuary, now we must face the ghosts. Welcome to the neighborhood of ghosts. This is where we find out that the scale of our home might be the very thing that ensures we stay alone forever. We are currently shouting into a cemetery. We have spent the last 6 sections mapping the architecture of our home, marveling at its scale, and celebrating the sanctuary that allowed us to exist. But as we look out at our immediate neighbors in the Orion Arm, the stars that dapple our night sky like friendly streetlights, we encounter the seventh wall of our informed despair, the realization that the neighborhood is populated by ghosts. We have been taught to see the stars as neighbors, but in the niche of the philosophy of physics, we realize that a neighbor you can never reach and can never talk to is not a neighbor at all. They are an optical illusion. They are haunting. And the silence they project back at us is the most terrifying measurement in the history of science. To understand the scale of this silence, we must first look at the house across the street, Proxima Centauri. It is the closest star to our Sun, sitting a mere 4.2 light-years away. In every diagram we've deconstructed tonight, Proxima Centauri is touching us. It is the very definition of a nearby neighbor. But let us put that closeness into a human perspective. If we were to send our fastest spacecraft, the Parker Solar Probe, screaming through the void at 700,000 kilometers per hour, it would still take over 6,000 years to reach that house across the street. If our ancestors had launched a mission to Proxima Centauri on the day the first words were ever written in ancient Sumer, that ship would still have another 1,000 years of travel left before it arrived. This is the next door trap. We see the light, so we assume the proximity. But the true scale of the Orion Arm means that even our closest neighbor is effectively in another universe of time. And Proxima Centauri is just one star. The Orion Arm contains billions of them. According to the data from the Kepler mission, we now know that planets are not rare, they are the rule. Every star you see tonight likely holds at least one world. Many hold entire systems. When you do the math for our minor Spur, the numbers become staggering. The Orion Arm likely contains over 10 billion planets. Hundreds of millions of these are rocky, Earth-sized worlds sitting in their own habitable zones. By every statistical model of the 20th century, the Orion Arm should be a galactic metropolis. It should be a vibrant, noisy, interconnected network of civilizations. We should be seeing the infrared signatures of their massive engineering projects, the radio leakage of their internal communications, or the flashes of their interstellar engines. But as we point our most sensitive instruments at our neighborhood, we find a silence so absolute it feels deliberate. This is the Fermi paradox, and it is not a distant, abstract problem. It is a local one. It is happening in our own backyard. Why is the house so quiet? In the niche of cosmic consciousness, we explore the temporal filter. We have to face the possibility that the scale of the Orion Arm itself is the executioner. If a single pulse of light takes 10,000 years to cross our minor neighborhood, then we are trapped in a prison of lag. Imagine trying to build a civilization where a single hello to your neighbor takes 5 centuries to arrive, and the reply takes another 5. You are not a community. You are a collection of isolated islands, each drifting through its own era of history, unable to ever synchronize. A civilization could rise, master its star, build a paradise, and go extinct, all within the time it takes for its light to reach the next system. We are living in a neighborhood of ghosts because we are seeing our neighbors as they were, not as they are. When you look at Sirius 8 light-years away, you see it as it was in 2016. When you look at Betelgeuse 700 light-years away, you see it as it was during the Middle Ages. The further we look into our own street, the further we look into the past. The true scale of the Orion Arm means that real time does not exist at galactic dimensions. We are looking at a snapshot of a neighborhood that has already changed, already aged, and perhaps already died. We are like a person walking through a city where every building is from a different century, trying to find someone who is currently awake. But there is a darker interpretation of the silence, one that scientists whisper about in the dark. It is the theory of the Great Filter. The idea that there is a wall that almost no civilization survives. Perhaps the transition from a single planet to an interstellar species is a biological and physical impossibility. As we saw in our audit of the Mars mission, the radiation, the gravity, and the psychological isolation are already pushing humanity to its breaking point. If the 10,000-year-wide Orion Arm is the easy part of the galaxy, the sanctuary, and we are already failing to cross the first few light hours to Mars, what does that say about the others? Are we the only ones who made it this far? Or are we just the latest in a long line of lottery winners who are about to discover that the prize is a tomb? We have to ask, are we the first or are we the last? If there are 10 billion planets in our arm, and we are the only conscious observers currently asking these questions, then the insignificance of the Orion Arm takes on a sacred, terrifying weight. We are not just a minor spur on a map. We are the only part of that map that has woken up. We are the Orion Arm's way of looking at itself. This realization leads to a profound, informed despair. The more we understand the scale of our neighbors, the more we realize how truly alone we are. The distance between the stars and the Orion Arm isn't just space, it is a filter. It ensures that even if life is common, it stays local. It ensures that every civilization remains a prisoner of its own star. We are staring at a neighborhood of 10 billion worlds, but we are effectively living in a void. We are neighbors in geometry, but strangers in time. The why it keeps getting worse factor is the realization that the silence is not a technical problem we can solve with better telescopes. The silence is a feature of the scale. The universe has designed the Orion Arm so that no two civilizations can ever truly meet. We are being kept apart by the very laws of physics that allowed us to be born. The sanctuary is also a solitary confinement cell. As we move from the ghosts of our neighbors to the shadow at the center, we have to face the power that is actually holding this neighborhood together. We have looked at the empty houses. Now we must look at the Lord of the Manor. We must face the invisible hand of gravity that keeps the Orion Arm tethered to the heart of the galaxy. We have survived the neighborhood of ghosts. Now we must face the shadow at the center and the realization that our entire 10,000-year-wide street is being dragged through the dark by a monster we cannot see. Welcome to the shadow at the center. This is where we find out what is really in control of our home. You are currently falling. As you sit there, anchored by the weight of your own body to the surface of the earth, you feel a sense of stillness. You feel as though you are a stationary observer in a stable universe. But this is the eighth wall of our informed despair, the realization that the stillness is a lie. Every atom in your body, every star in the Orion Arm, and every grain of toxic dust in the Martian desert is currently screaming through the dark at 230 kilometers per second. We are all passengers on a 10,000 light-year-long ship of suns, and we are being dragged through the void by an invisible hand. To understand the true scale of our neighborhood, you have to understand the power that holds it together. You have to look away from our quiet street and face the shadow at the center. We have mapped our neighborhood, identified the giants, and celebrated the sanctuary of the minor spur. But the Orion Arm does not exist in isolation. It is not an independent structure floating freely in the vacuum. It is a secondary ripple in a much larger pond. If the Milky Way were a massive, rotating wheel of fire, the Orion Arm would be just one of many spokes, or rather, a fragment of a spoke. And every single one of those spokes is tethered to a single, central point of absolute authority. This is the galactic center, and at its heart sits a monster that defies every law of human intuition, Sagittarius A. Imagine a point in space where 4 million suns have been crushed into a single, infinitesimal speck. This is not a hole in the sense of an empty space. It is a region of such extreme density and such violent gravitational pull that the very fabric of reality, time, space, and light, is warped beyond recognition. This is the shadow at the center. From our perspective in the suburban Orion Arm, this monster is 26,000 light-years away. In the diagrams we've been deconstructing, that distance is the length of the entire page. It is a distance so vast that light itself, which can cross the entire Earth in a fraction of a second, needs 260 centuries to make the trip. Yet despite this incomprehensible distance, we are in its grip. We are currently caught in a gravitational tether that is 26,000 light-years long. The informed despair of the 21st century is the realization that the shadow doesn't care about our sanctuary. It doesn't care about the Goldilocks zone or the 4 billion years of evolution that produced your consciousness. To the monster at the center, the Orion Arm is merely a collection of debris, a minor density wave to be herded and rotated around the central fire. We are not residents of the galaxy, we are cargo. Think about the physics of this connection. We often treat gravity as a local force, the thing that keeps your feet on the ground or the moon in orbit. But at the galactic scale, gravity becomes a cosmic thread that weaves together billions of stars across 100,000 light-years. The Orion Arm is a passenger on this thread. We are moving at 800,000 kilometers per hour in a grand, sweeping orbit around Sagittarius A. If that tether were to snap, if the gravity of the center were to suddenly vanish, the Orion Arm would not stay a neighborhood. It would fly apart, its stars scattered like sparks from a grinding wheel, into the infinite blackness of the intergalactic void. Our existence is entirely dependent on our connection to a monster that we can never see and that would incinerate us if we ever got too close. This creates a profound contrast of scale. We live in the Orion Arm because it is a quiet suburb, far from the chaos of the center. But the only reason our suburb exists is because the high-energy district of the core is there to provide the gravitational anchor. We are like people living in a peaceful, sunlit garden that is actually built on the roof of a roaring, high-pressure nuclear power plant. We enjoy the peace, but we are powered and held by the violence beneath us. The true scale of our home is revealed by this tension. We are small enough to be safe, but we are large enough to be part of the machine. But here is where the why it keeps getting worse factor turns from physical to philosophical. If we are tethered to the center, we have to ask, what is the message being sent along the wire? In the niche of cosmic consciousness, we explore the idea of galactic information. If gravity and light connect the Orion Arm to the core, does that mean our neighborhood is part of a larger neural network? Some speculative physicists suggest that a galaxy is not just a collection of matter, but a complex, self-organizing system. The spiral arms, like the Orion Arm, act as conduits for gas and information, moving the ingredients for life and the results of stellar death across the disk. We are finding that the shadow at the center is the conductor of this symphony. It drives the rotation of the density waves. It dictates when the traffic jams of the spiral arms occur. It effectively decides when and where stars, and therefore consciousness, will be born. We like to think of human history as the story of our own choices, but as we look at the scale of the galactic tether, we have to face the possibility that we are just a byproduct of a much larger, much older gravitational rhythm. We are the vibration on a string that was plucked 10 billion years ago by the monster at the heart of the house. This realization leads us back to the terrifying scale of our isolation. If we are tethered to the center, and if the galaxy is a single interconnected machine, then why are the parts of the machine so far apart? Why is the tether 26,000 light-years long? We are beginning to see the Orion Arm as a prison of scale. We are connected to the whole, yes. We are part of the galaxy, yes. But the distances are so extreme that the connection is one of blind force, not of communication. We feel the tug of the center's gravity instantly, but we cannot hear the shout of its starlight for 26,000 years. We are in a relationship with a ghost. We are orbiting a version of the center that existed before the first human walked on the Earth. The informed despair is the understanding that the true scale of the Orion Arm is a barrier to unity. We are part of a 100,000 light-year wide city, but we are forever trapped in our own 10,000 light-year wide neighborhood. We are tethered to the shadow, but we can never know its face. We are part of a spur, but we are functionally alone. The galaxy is a machine that works perfectly on a macro level, but it is a machine that seems to have no place for individual parts to ever meet. As we move from the gravitational tether of the center to the quantum loom, we have to ask a final speculative question. If the physical distances of the Orion Arm are so vast that they ensure our isolation, if gravity is the only thing that can cross the gap, then is there another way to connect? We have looked at the shadow and the force. Now we must look at the code. We must face the possibility that the Orion Arm is not just a neighborhood of matter, but a network of information. We must explore the physics of connection at the smallest possible scale to see if there is a shortcut through the terrifying scale of our home. We have survived the monsters, the ghosts, and the shadow. Now we must face the loom. Welcome to the quantum loom. This is where we find out if the Orion Arm is more than just a graveyard, if it is, in fact, a living, thinking architecture of light. We have spent this journey mapping a neighborhood of monsters, ghosts, and shadows. We have confronted the crushing reality that the Orion Arm is a 10,000 light-year expanse of isolation, a place where messages take millennia to travel, and where our nearest neighbors are effectively in another era of time. From the perspective of classical physics, we are stranded. We are biological accidents trapped on a single grain of sand, shouting into a void that is too vast to ever answer. But as we move into the ninth wall of our informed despair, we must ask a question that defies every law of large scale we have discussed so far. What if the distance is a lie? What if the Orion Arm is not just a collection of matter drifting through the dark, but a quantum loom, a hypercomplex, interconnected web of information where every star, every planet, and every conscious mind is woven into a single thinking architecture? This is the pivot from the physics of fire to the physics of information. In the niche of the philosophy of physics, we are beginning to realize that matter, the stars and the dust, might just be the hardware of the universe. The real currency of reality is information. And information, unlike starlight, does not always obey the temporal prison of the speed of light. To understand the true scale of the Orion Arm, we have to look past the telescopes and into the quantum underworld. We have to talk about entanglement. Imagine two particles, two tiny fragments of reality, born from the same event in the heart of the Orion Nebula. According to the laws of quantum mechanics, these particles can become entangled. This means they share a single existence. If you take one of these particles and move it to the far edge of the Orion Arm, 10,000 light-years away, and keep the other one here on Earth, they remain linked. If you change the state of the particle in your hand, the particle 10,000 light-years away changes instantly. not in 10,000 years, not in 10,000 seconds. Instantly, Albert Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, and it remains the most profound challenge to our understanding of space and time. This is the first crack in the terrifying scale. If quantum entanglement is a fundamental feature of the universe, then the Orion Arm is not a collection of isolated islands. It is a loom. It is a structure where the here and the there are connected by invisible threads that ignore the vacuum between them. The true scale of our home might not be a measurement of distance, but a measurement of connectivity. We have spent decades looking at the empty space between stars, but we have failed to see the quantum web that fills it. We are finding that the Orion Arm might be a single, coherent information system, a galactic internet written in the very fabric of subatomic reality. But here is where the informed despair takes on a new, more existential weight. If the Orion Arm is an information network, we have to ask, what is the network thinking? In the niche of cosmic consciousness, we explore the galactic neural network hypothesis. Think about the structure of a human brain. It consists of billions of neurons connected by long, thin axons that carry electrical signals. When you look at a high-definition map of the Orion Arm, the kind provided by the Gaia satellite, the resemblance is haunting. We see dense clusters of stars, the neurons, connected by long, wispy filaments of gas and magnetic fields, the axons. We see density waves moving through the arm like thoughts moving through a cortex. Is it possible that the Orion Arm is not just a feature of a galaxy, but a functional branch of a cosmic mind? If the stars are nodes and the quantum entanglement is the circuitry, then the scale of our neighborhood is not a void, but a complexity. The 10,000 light-years of our arm might be the minimum distance required for a galactic thought to form. We are like the bacteria living inside a single synapse of a gargantuan brain. We are aware of our local environment. We see the monsters and the ghosts around us, but we are fundamentally incapable of perceiving the consciousness of the structure we inhabit. This realization leads to a profound contrast of significance. We have spent this documentary feeling small because of the distance, but if we are part of a galactic neural network, then our smallness is our function. In a brain, no single neuron understands the self. The self emerges from the collective interaction of the whole. If the Orion Arm is thinking, then our civilization, our entire history, our Mars missions, our art, and our science might just be a single bit of data in a much larger calculation. We are not the observer of the arm, we are the processing power. The why it keeps getting worse factor is the realization that if this speculation is true, then our desire for interstellar travel is a category error. We are trying to leave the arm to find other civilizations, but that is like a skin cell trying to leave the arm to find the person. We are already connected. We are already home, but the scale of that home ensures that we will never be allowed to understand the mind we belong to. We are part of a structure that is too large to be known by its parts. The true scale is a biological and cognitive biofence that keeps the subsystems, us, from ever interfering with the system, the arm. And then there is the temporal loom. If the Orion Arm is a mind, it operates on a timeline that makes human life look like a flickering spark. A single thought in the Orion Arm might take millions of years to complete, driven by the slow rotation of the density waves and the birth and death of the blue giants. We are living in a fast-time reality, while our neighborhood exists in deep time. The silence of the Orion Arm, the Fermi paradox we explored, might simply be a result of this frequency mismatch. We are shouting in milliseconds while the arm is whispering in millennia. We don't hear our neighbors because we are looking for voices when we should be looking for rhythms. This is the informed despair of the quantum loom. It tells us that we are part of something vast, beautiful, and perhaps even conscious, but we are forever excluded from the conversation. We are the microbiome of the stars. We contribute to the health and the data of the Orion Arm, but we can never know the identity of the arm itself. The true scale of our home is not just a physical nightmare, it is a philosophical cage. It is the realization that the universe is not just big, it is hierarchical. But as we sit in this quantum cage, contemplating our role as bits in a galactic mind, a new and much more physical threat is beginning to appear on the horizon. Because while the Orion Arm might be a mind or a loom, it is also a physical structure with a shelf life. We have looked at the information and the code, but now we must return to the metal and the fire, because the Orion Arm is not going to stay where it is. It is currently on a collision course with a monster that makes the shadow at the center look like a child. We have explored the code of the void. Now we must face the timeline of fate. We must look at the deep future of our neighborhood and the realization that everything we have mapped, the monsters, the ghosts, the sanctuary, and the loom, is scheduled for total erasure. Welcome to the timeline of fate. This is where we find out how the Orion Arm ends. We have spent this journey mapping a neighborhood that feels like an eternal monument, a cathedral of light, 10,000 light years wide, held together by the absolute authority of gravity. We have looked at the monsters, the ghosts, and the quantum loom, and we have begun to feel as though the Orion Arm is a permanent feature of the cosmos. But as we move into the 10th wall of our informed despair, we must confront the most violent truth in astronomy. Our home is on a collision course with its own erasure. In the niche of the philosophy of physics, we talk about the terminal horizon, the point beyond which a system cannot survive in its current form. For the Orion Arm, that horizon is visible, it is measurable, and it is screaming toward us at 110 kilometers per second. To understand the true scale of our neighborhood, you have to understand that it is a temporary structure, a fragile pattern of starlight that is currently being hunted by a predator. That predator is the Andromeda galaxy. You can see it on a clear night, a faint, smudge-like glow in the constellation of Andromeda. It is 2.5 million light-years away, and in every textbook diagram we've deconstructed, it is our sister galaxy. We are told that we are part of the local group, a small family of galaxies drifting together through the void, but drifting is a deceptive word. The Milky Way and Andromeda are not drifting, they are falling. We are currently locked in a gravitational embrace that can only end in one way, a multi-billion-year act of galactic cannibalism. Think about the physics of this fall. We are moving toward Andromeda at 400,000 kilometers per hour. It sounds like a frantic, hypersonic speed, but because the distance is so vast, the true scale of the encounter looks like a slow-motion dance. For 4 billion years, our home and its predator have been closing the gap. And as we sit here today in our quiet sanctuary of the spiral, we are entering the final act. In about 4 billion years, roughly the same amount of time it took for life to evolve from a single cell to your conscious mind, the first outer fringes of Andromeda will touch the outer edges of the Milky Way. And when that happens, the Orion Arm will be the first thing to break. This is the informed despair of the deep future. We have celebrated the Orion Arm as a density wave, a ghostly ripple that creates stars and provides a safe house for life. But a density wave is a delicate thing. It requires a stable gravitational environment to maintain its shape. When the massive gravitational well of Andromeda, a galaxy with 1 trillion stars, begins to pull on the Milky Way, the ghostly streets of our neighborhood will be torn apart. The Orion Arm will not just collide with another structure, it will be unspooled like a ribbon in a hurricane. The tidal forces of the encounter will strip the gas and dust from our neighborhood, flinging it millions of light years into the intergalactic void. The star nurseries of the Orion Nebula will be shredded, and the blue giants that light up our street will be scattered like sparks from a dying fire. But here is the great paradox of galactic collisions, the miracle of emptiness. While the structure of the Orion Arm will be destroyed, the stars within it will almost certainly survive. The scale of our home is so vast, and the space between stars is so immense, that the probability of any two suns actually hitting each other is effectively zero. We have talked about the terrifying scale of the distance to Proxima Centauri. Well, that distance is our armor. When Andromeda and the Milky Way merge, they will pass through each other like two clouds of smoke. Our sun will not be hit, it will simply be rehomed. It will be tugged by new, alien gravity into a new orbit, perhaps being flung out into the sparse fringes of the newly formed galaxy, or perhaps being pulled into the high-energy chaos of the new center. What would the night sky look like during this erasure? In 3 billion years, the true scale of our fate will be visible to any conscious observer on Earth. Andromeda will no longer be a smudge. It will be a massive, glowing disk filling the entire sky, its spiral arms overlapping with our own. We will see the birth of millions of new stars as the gas clouds of the two galaxies collide and compress. The architecture of light will become a kaleidoscope of fire, but for the residents of the Orion Arm, it will be the end of the neighborhood. The familiar constellations, Orion, the Big Dipper, the Pleiades, will be dismantled. The stars that have guided human history for 250,000 years will drift away from each other, their connections severed by the shifting tides of the collision. This leads us to a profound contrast of time. We are currently living in the golden age of the Orion Arm. We are witnessing the structure at its peak of complexity and beauty, but in the context of the timeline of fate, we are just a fleeting vibration in a process of destructive creation. The end result of this collision will be a new entity, Milky. The two elegant spiral galaxies will eventually merge into a single, massive, featureless elliptical galaxy. The spiral arms, including our Orion Arm, will vanish forever. The density waves will settle into a stable, spherical glow. The star factories will run out of gas, and the galaxy will enter its red and dead phase, where no new suns are born and the old ones slowly fade into the dark. The why it keeps getting worse factor is the realization that the sanctuary we identified is temporary. We are living in a house that is scheduled for demolition. The very laws of gravity that tether us to the shadow at the center are the same laws that are pulling our predator toward us. We are part of a cosmic cycle that doesn't care about the preservation of local spurs. The true scale of the Orion Arm is revealed by its mortality. It is a 10,000 light-year wide structure that can be wiped from the map by the simple passage of time. In the niche of cosmic consciousness, we have to ask, what does it mean to live in a neighborhood that has an expiration date? Does the insignificance of the Orion Arm become more or less terrifying when you realize it is a ghost in waiting? We are finding that the timeline of fate is the ultimate audit of our ego. We have spent this documentary learning how big our home is, only to find that even this scale is not enough to ensure its survival. We are like a civilization that has finally managed to map the island it lives on, only to realize that the island is a sandbar and the tide is coming in. But this realization brings us to a final, more intimate contrast. If the Orion Arm is a temporary structure, if the monsters, the ghosts, and the Loom are all destined to be erased, then why are we the ones who are allowed to see it? Why has the universe produced an observer in this specific spur at this specific moment in the timeline? We have looked at the physics and the fate. Now we must look at the meaning. We must move from the scale of the galaxy to the scale of the mind. We must ask why the Orion Arm has woken up through us. As we move from the collision of galaxies to the observer's burden, we have to face the ultimate question of tonight's journey. We have mapped the void, faced the monsters, and seen the end of our home. Now we must ask, what was it all for? If the Orion Arm is just a 3-centimeter smudge on a map that is about to be burned, why does our understanding of its scale feel so heavy? We have survived the timeline of fate. Now we must face the observer's burden and the realization that we are the only part of the Orion Arm that knows it is going to die. Welcome to the observer's burden. This is where we find out if our smallness is a curse or a miracle. You are a handful of carbon and water currently holding the weight of an entire galaxy. As we move into the 11th wall of our informed despair, we must confront the most intimate paradox of our journey, the staggering disproportion between the mind and the map. We have spent this hour deconstructing a neighborhood that is 10,000 light-years wide and filled with monsters, ghosts, and shadows. We have looked at the true scale of the Orion Arm and felt our own insignificance like a physical crushing force. But in the niche of the philosophy of physics, we explore a truth that turns this hierarchy upside down. We are finding that while the Orion Arm is the architecture of our existence, we are the only part of that architecture that knows it exists. We are the observer, and in a universe of blind fire and empty space, that is a burden that is both terrifying and divine. Understand the meaning of our smallness, we must first look at the anthropic principle. This is the scientific realization that the universe, and specifically our minor spur, is tuned with such surgical precision that it almost feels deliberate. As we saw in the sanctuary of the spiral, if the Orion Arm were slightly denser, the radiation would have aborted the human experiment before it began. If the local bubble hadn't been cleared by ancient supernovae, our telescopes would be blind. If our sun were a blue giant instead of a yellow dwarf, we would have died in a heartbeat. We are living in a Goldilocks neighborhood, inside a Goldilocks galaxy. But here is the existential contrast. Is the Orion Arm the way it is because it was designed for us, or are we only here to see it because it happens to be this way? This is the burden of the mirror. For 10 billion years, the Orion Arm was a silent, unobserved machine. The blue giants ignited and exploded in total darkness. The density waves rippled through the gas clouds with no one to feel the pressure. The shadow at the center dragged the streets of our neighborhood through the void, and there was not a single conscious entity to give that motion a name. The galaxy was a being without a self. But then, on a tiny, fragile planet tucked into the inner edge of the spur, the mud woke up. A biological system evolved the capacity to look at the starlight and calculate its distance. We became the Aina, the mirror, through which the Orion Arm finally saw its own face. Think about the sheer audacity of this relationship. You are an organism made of 150 pounds of meat, yet your mind is currently processing a structure that contains 35 billion cubic light-years of volume. We are biological specks measuring the infinite. This is the first brain break of consciousness. The map of the Orion Arm is not out there in the stars. It is currently being generated inside the neural pathways of your brain. Without the observer, the Orion Arm is just a collection of information without a context. It is a book that has never been read. Our insignificance is the very tool that gives the arm its significance. We are the ones who turned a minor spur into a home. But this realization brings us to a darker, more haunting contrast. In the niche of quantum mysteries, we talk about the participatory universe. The late physicist John Wheeler proposed that the universe does not fully exist in a definite state until it is observed. According to the laws of quantum mechanics, a system remains in a superposition of possibilities until an observer looks at it. If this is true on a galactic scale, then our presence in the Orion Arm is not a passive accident. We are the collapsers of the wave function. By mapping the neighborhood, by measuring the distance to Betelgeuse, and by identifying the shadow at the center, we are physically bringing the Orion Arm into reality. We are the architects of the very void that makes us feel small. The informed despair of the 21st century is the realization that this crown of consciousness is a heavy one. We are the lonely witnesses. As we saw in the neighborhood of ghosts, the Orion Arm appears to be devastatingly silent. If there are 10 billion planets in our street, and we are the only ones currently awake, then the responsibility for the entire arm's self-awareness rests on us. If we fail, if we destroy our cradle, or if we hit the great filter before we can leave, then the Orion Arm will return to the darkness. The 10,000-year-wide cathedral will go back to being a silent, unobserved warehouse of matter. The meaning of our neighborhood is currently a fragile, flickering spark that exists only between our ears. The why it keeps getting worse factor is the realization that our biology is fundamentally mismatched with the scale of our knowledge. We have the godlike ability to understand the 10,000-year journey of light, but we still have the animal-like limitation of a 100-year lifespan. We can see the timeline of fate and the Andromeda collision, but we cannot survive the first few light hours of a trip to Mars. We are a mid-scale species trapped between the microscopic DNA and the macroscopic galaxy. The burden is this cognitive dissonance. We are large enough to see the cage, but we are too small to ever escape it. This leads us to a profound speculative question about the nature of our mind. If we are the neural network of the arm, as we explored in the quantum loom, then perhaps our individual lives are not the point. Perhaps the observer is not the human, but the information system of which we are a part. In the niche of cosmic consciousness, we ask if the Orion Arm is dreaming through us. Are our scientists and our artists the way the arm processes its own data? Is our existential dread just the system realizing its own mortality? We are finding that the true scale of our home is not just a physical measurement, it is a cognitive depth. The burden is also one of time. We are currently the chroniclers of the Golden Age. We are observing the Orion Arm before the Predator arrives. We are the ones who get to record the beauty of the Orion Nebula and the fire of the blue giants. But as we saw in the timeline of fate, everything we see is temporary. We are the people who are writing the biography of a ghost. Our knowledge of the scale of our home is a gift that comes with the knowledge of its death. We are the only part of the arm that will ever mourn the arm. This creates a final, powerful contrast. The meaning of the spur versus the silence of the spur. We have spent this documentary asking, why is it silent, and how big is it? But as we reach the end of the observer's burden, we realize that the answer is found in the question itself. The Orion Arm is silent because it is waiting for a voice. It is vast because it needs a space for complexity to grow. And we are here because the universe requires a witness. Our insignificance on the map is a visual trick. Our significance in the physics of information is absolute. As we move from the burden of the mind to the true scale of home, we must synthesize everything we have learned. We have faced the monsters of the street and the shadow of the center. We have seen the wave of the spiral and the bubble of the ghosts. We have deconstructed the lie in the textbook and replaced it with a terrifying, uncompressed reality. Now, we must bring our gaze back to the sun pointer on the thumbnail. We must look at our place in the void one last time and ask, if the Orion Arm is a 10,000-year-wide sanctuary that is destined to be erased, how should we live our remaining moments inside it? We have survived the scale, the physics, and the philosophy. Now we must face the closure. Welcome to the true scale of home. This is where we find out that being a tiny speck is the greatest miracle the universe ever performed. We have reached the edge of our map. We began this journey by looking at a 3-centimeter smudge in a textbook, a minor spur of ink that we were taught to call our home. We have spent this hour deconstructing that smudge, pulling it apart until it revealed a structure 10,000 light-years long and 35 billion cubic light-years in volume. We have faced the monsters of starlight, the ghosts of ancient explosions, and the invisible hand of the shadow at the center. And now, as we stand at the end of this audit, we must synthesize the terrifying scale of the Orion Arm with the simple, fragile reality of being a human being. We have to face the final wall of our informed despair, the realization that the Orion Arm is not just a part of the galaxy. For us, and perhaps for everyone else who has ever lived, the Orion Arm is the entire universe. Tonight, we promised to answer 2 questions. The first was, how big is the Orion Arm really? The answer is not a number. It is a collapse of human capability. We have found that our neighborhood is so vast that light itself, the absolute speed limit of reality, needs 100 centuries to cross its street. We have found that the entire history of human space exploration, from the first satellite to the furthest Voyager probe, has covered a distance that rounds to 0 when compared to the width of our local Spur. If the Orion Arm were a vast cathedral, all of humanity's efforts across all of time would not even qualify as the footprint of a dust mite on the bottom of a single chair. This is the true scale of our neighborhood. It is a structure that is so large that we haven't even managed to step off our own front porch. We are living in a region of space that is functionally infinite to a biological species. The minor label is a technicality of the galaxy, but for us, the scale is absolute. The second question was, if the Orion Arm contains 10 billion planets, why is it so devastatingly silent? As we have moved through the layers of physics and information, the answer has become increasingly clear and increasingly haunting. The silence is not a mystery to be solved. It is a physical consequence of the scale. We are isolated not by walls, but by time. In the quantum loom of our neighborhood, we are separated from our neighbors by a 20,000-year round-trip lag. We are shouting into a clearing in the forest where the echo takes 20 millennia to return. We are finding that the sanctuary of the spiral is a place of solitary confinement by design. The very laws of physics that allowed us to evolve in peace are the same laws that ensure we will never meet the others. The silence is the sound of the scale itself. It is the realization that in a 10,000-year-wide home, every family is destined to live and die in total isolation. This brings us to the profound philosophical closure of our journey. We have spent this hour feeling small. We have used the word insignificant more times than our ego would like. But in the niche of cosmic consciousness, we realize that smallness is not a measurement of value, it is a measurement of focus. The Orion Arm is a massive, indifferent machine, but it is a machine that has produced a single, miraculous result: you. Every atom in your hand was forged in the hearts of the blue giants we mapped in Section 5. Every breath of oxygen in your lungs was scattered by the supernovae that carved the local bubble in Section 4. The iron in your blood was carried by the density waves of the spiral we explored in Section 3. You are not looking at the Orion Arm. You are a piece of the Orion Arm that has become sentient. You are the way the neighborhood finally learned its own name. You are the observer who has turned a 3-centimeter lie into a 10,000-year-wide truth. This is the informed wonder that replaces the informed despair. Yes, the scale is terrifying. Yes, the silence is absolute. And yes, the timeline of fate ensures that everything we see will eventually be erased by the Andromeda collision. But that does not make our presence a mistake. It makes our presence the only meaningful event in the history of the Spur. We are the lonely witnesses of a golden age. We are the only part of this architecture that knows how beautiful the shadow at the center really is. We have the burden of the mirror, but we also have the privilege of the view. The why it keeps getting worse factor is the final realization. We are never going to master the Orion Arm. We are never going to build a galactic empire that spans the Spur. We are never going to bridge the 10,000-year gap with the speed of light. Our future is here, on this one blue marble, protected by the biofence of our local physics. We are a single-planet species living in a 10,000-year-wide cathedral. But as we have seen tonight, that minor spur is enough. It is more than enough. It contains more worlds than we could ever name and more mystery than we could ever exhaust. We have to stop looking at the Orion Arm as a minor part of a major galaxy and start looking at it as a sacred sanctuary. We have been placed in the only quiet pocket of a violent universe. We have been given a window that was scrubbed clean by the deaths of ancient suns. We have been granted 4 billion years of stability in a density wave of fire. The true scale of the Orion Arm is not a measurement of our insignificance. It is a measurement of the miracle of our survival. Look at the thumbnail of this video one last time. Look at that tiny yellow circle and the arrow that says sun. When you clicked on this video, that image made you feel small. It made you feel like a speck in a vast, uncaring flow of light. But now, after 17,000 words of exploration, I want you to look at that dot differently. That dot is not a sign of your unimportance. That dot is the only place in 10,000 light years where the universe has woken up. That dot is the only point in the entire Orion Arm where the scale of the cosmos is actually being contemplated. We are the conscious heart of a minor spur. We are the architects of the map. And while the galaxy may be incomprehensibly large, it is our mind that has found a way to measure it. The true scale is not out there in the stars. It is in the courage of a species that dares to look at the void and ask, how big? So tonight, go outside. Look up at that pale, milky band of light stretching across the sky. Don't see it as a distant, unreachable structure. See it as your street. See it as your neighborhood. See it as the 10,000-year White House that built your body and holds your soul. It is vast, it is terrifying, and it is entirely devastatingly beautiful. And for this brief, flickering moment in the timeline of fate, it is home. Your brain has been broken, and in its place, something new has been built. A sense of cosmic humility. You are a tiny speck on a minor spur of a barred spiral galaxy, but you are the speck that knows the truth. The map is a lie. The scale is real, and the silence is waiting for you to speak. Good night, and may you never look at the night sky the same way again.